Welcome back to the Spin Cycle Podcast, everybody. I'm Caley Fretz. Today on the show, Tadej Pogačar is burned out. The Tour burned bright at the last, and Juan Ayuso could be back in a big way. Let's get to it. Welcome to the pod, Kit Nicholsons. I've missed you. I miss podding with you.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Yeah. And Jonny Long.
Hello, I've missed having another person from this island to back me up.
Have you been feeling got at?
No, it's just when you start using American words to just ease communication and you just lose a bit of your soul.
Yeah.
You know?
Gas station.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
There was a lot of Americans actually on the pod this last month. Yeah. Little
I tell you what,
Josh.
though, I've only listened to Friday's episode. Or Thursdays. I've been trying to catch up, but I never realised how smooth like velvet Josh Robinson's voice is. It's
really?
insane. Yeah, you listen to it. Honestly, it's crazy. I was like, who is this guy?
You'd say he doesn't sound like that in person?
There's something
actually.
that the Will and Stuart just make magic, I think, and just really add extra silk to his voice that they don't do for us, which is sad.
Rude. Come on, Stuart.
Yeah.
Get on it. All right, let's talk a little Tour de France. I mean, so it's Monday. It just wrapped up 24 hours ago. The Tour de France Femme, by the
Not
way.
even.
Yeah, not even. Tour de France Femme still on, and you need to go check out the Wheel Talk pods that are coming out every single day because they are excellent. They're full of diaries. They're full of analysis, full of commentary. They're just fun. They're just a fun listen. So make sure you're going and listen to those. If you're listening to this on the member feed, you're already getting those. Otherwise, you got to head over to the Wheel Talk feed. Subscribe, like and subscribe, etc. Do not miss those. But let's talk. Let's sort of wrap up the men's race a little bit. Ian and Patrick and Josh, they did a little bit of this from the Champs yesterday. But well, I don't know. We've had a little bit of separation from it now. Not a ton, but Jonny, you and I left now a couple days ago. Kit, you're watching from afar through the month. I think I've sort of started to wrap my head around this tour a little bit. I don't know if you two feel the same way, but could we just start with like a really basic, was it good, was it bad, how would you rate it kind of thing? I know it's very, it's a little cliche, but the reason I ask is because my rating has changed in like the last 72 hours. Kit?
Well, yeah, I mean, something that came to mind as you were speaking was, the idea that the Tour has only been over for 24 hours. The GC's kind of been over for a week. Now, I know that's very easy to say in hindsight. It's also very easy to say at the time. But at least at the time, you have a little bit of hope that something might happen, even if it's, very perhaps naive hope in this case. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly been... I think when I was thinking about this yesterday, because I was starting to ponder it, it was obviously the voluntary neutralization was much shorter yesterday than it usually is on the Paris stage. But there was time while Pogačar was actually, well, I say drilling it in inverted commas, but he was pacing on the front for once for his teammates. But it was actually looking at that image, and I was thinking how this tour, perhaps more than any other, including the Visma-Lease bike domination in 2022, when Pogačar, the man in yellow, even when he wasn't in yellow, when he was in rainbow bands, has kind of been the puppet master. He has dictated the tour, or at least he has influenced nearly every single stage, he and his team, including yesterday when, there was, he even said in his flash interview at the end, he wasn't sure if he had the motivation. He found himself at the front, which I thought was perhaps over-egging the pudding, but still, he was very active in that finale. He was the man to watch, even in the stages when, the number of times that Joe and I had a little conversation as the home team of a weekend. It's like, I wish Pogačar and UAE would let this go. And actually, usually, he did. Or, even if it was by 30 seconds, somebody from the breakaway did win. Yes, but exactly, yeah. But it was that sort of UAE was very much intent on controlling this tour. And that sort of made it feel a little bit, and I don't, Pogačar maybe found his reputation slightly dented at the end of last week. in a similar way to, in the most recent Unchained documentary, where we've perhaps seen a different version of him, where he is this slightly more, and he spoke about it yesterday, he's slightly more mature, he cares a bit more now about his public image maybe. He's not a child, or the child is diminishing, he said. So there is this different version of him that we're seeing, and he needs to race differently. He has more responsibility, more pressure. The more tours he gets, the less he's got to prove, but the more people are expecting bigger things like records and longevity. So I think, try and get a long story short, it's been an interesting tour. It has not been a blockbuster for drama, when ultimately the Tour de France is about a yellow jersey. But there have been some great stories. Yes, there have been a vast number of teams who have come away with nothing. But X was a great story. Julian Alaphilippe was a lot of fun. Usually unlucky fun, but it was fun anyway. The French had some good stories. Victor Campenaerts was very amusing on the vlogs on Instagram. So there have been things to get your teeth into. There's even been a bit of controversy, which we always love to get our teeth into, obviously.
I've got three things, because I've been mulling this over, Caley, and then I'll let you talk about how your views changed. I'm trying to remember the three things. I just had them straight in my head. The one is that I think the veil sort of slipped from, part of it is you need Pogačar and Primož Roglič to kind of fully buy into the circus. I think one of the quotes that we kept on just joking with each other at the tour was the tour is a circus and we're the clowns thing. And that is true, but you kind of need the clowns. Let's just say circus performers instead of clowns. You need the circus performers to not be so obvious about the fact that they know that they are the circus performers, right? You need the reason that it has the heft is because we see how much it means to all the riders taking part. That's what separates it from all the other bike races and what makes it mean some to the fans. But when you have Primož Roglič, who could have comfortably got a top 5 if he probably had really dedicated himself, I think, and him turning up at the start and being like, I don't care. And then when you have Tadej Pogačar, who's won it comfortably, also be like, oh, this is, I might not even come back next year. I think that really has a huge knock-on effect to the race. We often we'll talk off mic and when we're preparing for the show to be like, right, even if we found this stage or whatever, a bit dull, part of the game is to not just be like, that was boring, right? Because it's a spectrum. Everyone has different levels of what they find boring, exciting. And so we have a much lesser responsibility of that if we want people to care. But the riders and the two-time defending champion, who's also world champion, also, I think, however unfair this is, has a duty to kind of play the part. And I think that's what's then led to, I'm kind of jumping ahead, but I think it all wraps together. Yeah. I think that definitely diminished this year's race. I think also part of the problem is Pogačar's caused his own problems by the way that they all race now to try and combat him is so unbelievably hard and difficult. I got a real sense that it took away from the racing a bit. Even after the first week, had turned to riders and sports directors who was it is so hard. And it's sort of when you're riding a bike and the faster you go, the harder it is to chat to anyone you're riding with. And it kind of felt like that at times where it was just right, we just got to actually get through this, and the sort of whimsy and fun and sunflower fields had to fall by the wayside.
It was like an all-night boat party when you get to an hour and a half from the end, but you're still an hour and a half from the pier, and you can't get off.
Yeah, but there is, and the thing is we some of the racing has been so good that some of those stages were blockbuster, but the problem is that the cost that it took, it was almost we were talking whether Peloton was ill, whether Pogačar was ill, whether Vingegaard was ill. I think it was just so hard that it was impossible for the race to be accentuated when it was just from kilometre zero every day. And I just my brain is gone. I'm sorry. I had the third point, but it's just absolutely gone. It'll come back to me. But you know what I mean? I think it was a really hard tour to gauge because while we had a lot of honesty, I think it was then there was some lack of emotion. It felt, I don't know.
It was less entertaining. It was maybe slightly more.
Oh, remembered it.
Human. It was kind of.
I remembered it. Sorry.
It felt a little bit. I don't know. It felt a little bit like they are the entertainers. We've talked about it before. They are there to entertain. They're the clowns in the circus. And Roglič seemed to get that memo, even if it backfired a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think maybe there was an element of, oh right, yeah, so he gets tired too, and then you suddenly feel like there's not as much drama going on, and it's
Also-
just everyone's trying to get to the end, including the riders, which is always the case anyway. But
Yeah, but accentuated this year. Final thing. I think we've had a run of like 3 tours, which have been, or maybe 3 in the last 4, which have been pretty like blockbuster, and we've had like amazing narrative arcs from in various competitions with various riders, and I think we just lacked a bit of that oomph this year,
yeah,
which
it was
is
Pogačar's
which sometimes
tour.
that happens. That just happens sometimes. You know, it's probably still better than some of the tours we watched in the 2010s. But you know, the problem is that there's so many things competing for your attention, right? And we're so used to now, like the algorithms today compared to 10 years ago. Like my brain's just
We also have,
generally, but it's hard, you know, to maintain that.
Yeah,
like,
we also
Montmartre was great, but
Yeah, Montmartre was fantastic, but we also now, I mean, you guys, I mean, it's a different situation for on the ground and well, even for ITV viewers, but we now have start to finish coverage, which means that there's more for the riders to invest in, there's more for the teams to invest in, and so that's also affected it. And that's I mean, that came in the 2010s, right? Or even more recently. That's not there was a lot that's changed the tour. So yeah, in the grand scheme of Tours de France, it probably still rates up quite high, but yeah, we have been treated to a great rivalry. And you know, when you take a step back and realize that Vingegaard he probably had a very good tour, but
He said
he
so.
did have a very good tour,
Yeah.
and he and Pogačar have now finished on the first and second step of the podium for the past 5 years. Pogačar's been on the podium for 6 years. It's bloody impressive. That is an era-defining thing. And yes, Froome was also there for many years in the 2010s, but it was very different. It was a very different situation.
yeah.
Well,
Caley, what do you think?
Well, I think I put in our
Summed
group
up.
chat like sometime yesterday that this is the worst tour since 2016.
You said something like that, yeah.
Something to that effect. Which was if I had to go back and be like, which was the worst of the Froome tours, and I think it might have been that one. there were a number that were pretty pretty boring, and I think that was largely because of the sort of myopic focus on the yellow jersey, and because there actually were a lot of other things that happened, right? And I think it impacted heavily by this sense that we got very, very sort of like firmly on the ground. And I think that, you know, Kit, you mentioned before we hit record that you guys you were sort of picking up on this from television and from photos, and it was very obvious that Tadej Pogačar wasn't really enjoying himself. And I'm not saying that he has to for our enjoyment, but to your point, Jonny, I think he kind of has to pretend to. Or at
Definitely
least-
on the podium. He has to on the podium.
Yeah, or at least
Yeah.
like pretend that he really wants it, you know? And
Yeah.
I think that part of the problem for me was the first week, okay, we had all these like sort of punchy fun stages. The first week was actually, I think, relatively good. Horkam basically ruined the yellow jersey race. And that was not early. It was a stage 13, 14. It all runs together in my head at this point. But it wasn't late either. Like it was the first stage in the Pyrenees. It was the first true mountain stage. We could say that you could say that the Clermont-Ferrand sort of like Massif Central stages was pretty mountainous, but that was a bunch of Cat 2s. This was a Or category uphill finish. Pogačar went at the bottom of it, and by the top, the Tour de France was over. And
it wasn't raced; it was a hill climb. It was a lead out to a hill climb.
yeah, and then and then we saw sort of similar things in a couple other climbs throughout the next week. Mont Ventoux, I think, was somewhat anticlimactic. I think I told this story during one of the Tour de France pods, one of the Tour dailies, but like at the top of Ventoux, Christian Vandervelde, who'd been on a moto, came out to me and said, like, someone had told him that Vingegaard had tried a bunch and that, you know, that he potentially kind of put Pogačar on the ropes. And my response was Pogačar never even got out of the saddle. And I think that sort of thing, it's these little kind of cues to us cycling fans as to like how much effort Pogačar's actually putting in. And it was just very obvious to me that he wasn't putting much effort in and he was winning anyway. And I think that
Yeah.
that was incredibly boring for him.
And the idea that he might also have been sick at that point as well, because
Yeah, well, I mean, so maybe it's not a question of effort. Maybe it's a question of it was actually all he could do, but he still.
no, but if that was all he could do, that's terrifying.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but I've kind of come around. I should say, I've kind of come around in the last 24 hours since sort of like digesting it all a little bit and thinking about the other storylines that happened throughout the Tour de France and the fact that we had this Brailsford stuff and we had a fantastic in the end battle for the green jersey that went to the right person. I would say I wrote the whole story early in the race about how like Tadej Pogačar should not be potentially winning the green jersey, and I'm genuinely glad that he didn't. So we had all these other things that sort of swirl around it, and then you have the like this is just the athletic equivalent of Type 2 fun, or the athletic entertainment equivalent of Type 2 fun, where like we're gonna be, I think we'll be happy we were around for this particular era. That doesn't necessarily mean it's super fun in the moment.
Well,
but
this
when
tour
you look
will
back
be
on this tour, you'll be like, holy hell, Pogačar is just.
But it will be part of the summary rather than a highlight.
Yeah, I think
also it's like it's not. I don't think people should take away from this discussion that like the tour sucked. I think it's still the Tour de France. It's still like it still gets you out of your seat watching. Like some of those stages and some of those moments were incredible. I think just now, when you have those two rivals and it's developed into real era-defining rivalry, and like even this century, like probably best rivalry since the turn of the millennium. Yeah. So it's hard. It's easy to forget
maybe
that
Armstrong Ulrich, which was mostly after 2000. Yeah, but still.
Yeah. Best rivalry without an asterisk on it, let's say. But it's still it's still good. It's just like the part of the job and the fun after the tour for everyone who's watched the tour is to discuss how good was it, right? Because it's not like most people aren't necessarily happy or sad that certain riders won to such an extent. Like when you watch a team sport, part of the fun is discussing how good you thought it was and what you enjoyed. So I still think it was great. I think we'll definitely look back on it for certain things that happened, like Pogačar's honesty towards the end, for the Brailsford thing, for the complete just dismembering of the idea of a sprint stage, both in the words of the organisers and in terms of how much better that Montmartre stage was. I think there was definitely a switch, and like just when we had Pogačar launch onto the scene, I think 2025 will be like, okay, a lot of things actually changed there. And we'll be able to point back to be like, okay, it was quite pivotal, even if it wasn't necessarily, take your breath away, exciting all the time.
Yeah, there was
There's
a similar pivot, and I think it was like 2015, 16, where in an effort to sort of start to, maybe 17 even, in an effort to start to sort of like pull away the stranglehold of Sky on that entire era, that's when we started to get these like crazy 65K stages, for example. And it was a bit of a turning point.
Grid starts.
In the way, yeah, grid starts. I mean, like some things worked, some things didn't. Okay? Like the grid starts definitely didn't. But it was this moment where they're like, okay, we can actually do different things with this race route. Like we don't have to do exactly the same. We don't have to do 215K sprint stages, transition sprint stages, and then Alps, and then Pyrenees, and then done. Right? Like we can mix things up a little bit. And I think that this was in another step in that direction. Thierry Gouvenou deserves a lot of credit for being pretty bold, I think, in this. Let's talk about the Montmartre stage yesterday.
Thank God it was a good race.
It was so good. I think it was helped along by the fact that it was raining,
and that they then neutralized the GC because it could
so you neutralize the GC and it's raining, and just to sort of like back, so the reason why the rain is important is not necessarily like, oh, it's going to cause crashes and cause chaos. It's because in order to not crash, you have to go so much slower around every single corner, and that means you have to accelerate harder out of the backside of it. So the physical demands of riding a course like that in the wet are significantly, probably 20-30% higher than they are in the dry, because you can't just sort of like flow through corners and stay on the wheel. And that meant that the strongest riders
group off the front.
It meant that they were able to get rid of almost everybody, right? We had a group of 6, right, going into the last time, and then we end up with, I mean, hell, like Wout van Aert, Tadej Pogačar, like going up either side of the Montmartre climb. Unbelievable.
And then Pogačar dropping his head
Yeah.
on the last stage of the Tour, as Van Aert, who's been trying every day. Well, most days, often. When he's had his chance, he's tried and faded. So it was I mean, the Tour needed it. I needed it. Obviously, Van Aert needed it, and I think, it was definitely a highlight, and it was like you say, it was a fantastic finale.
Can I jump in with a conspiracy theory?
Please.
Go for it.
I don't believe this. I'm gonna do.
We should, you know what? We should get
I'm just a
tinfoil
guy
hats
in a hat.
made. We should actually get them made. Off-season projects.
I'm just a man in a hat with a
Random
theory.
man.
Random man in a hat with a theory. If you're watching on YouTube, I just put a very, very cheap, terrible Tour de France hat that I got from the caravan on my head. We had heard mentioned that the way Tadej Pogačar pulls the fan base back to him and reintegrates himself into the hearts and minds of the cycling public is to lose. Is there no better way to do that than when it's mano a mano in the final moments of the Tour de France, and the guy who would win is like beloved, right? Is very much loved within the sport, and is that possible? Okay, I'm going to take my hat off now and say that that's not really what happened.
Not what you believe, yeah.
It's not really what I believe, but it is certainly like if you think about Pogačar as cynical enough to do that, which I don't think so. No. It's probably effective because I genuinely even for me, covering this whole race, being pretty down on it ahead of yesterday's stage, and then coming out of yesterday's stage being like, actually, that was pretty good. I would say it was effective, whether it was intentional or not.
I remember writing in 2022, so it was the first Tour that he lost after 2 triumphs. I remember writing that year. I think while you guys were all off, I don't know, drinking wine on the Champs-Élysées somewhere, I wrote a piece saying that finishing second was the best thing that could have happened to Tadej Pogačar, because he was already Tadej Pogačar. He was already winning everything all over the place. Maybe not quite to the degree that he did last year and this year, but minus Milan-San Remo and Paris-Roubaix, but. He wins so much that he's apparently getting bored, and he needs a challenge. So to lose is a good thing, and it's been it's definitely I think we can all understand that. However, as Caley has also hinted, I think he really was going for it yesterday. He was made to do a lot of work, and that's how Visma really played the game perfectly with Jorgensen and Van Aert, 2 brilliant classics riders as well as Grand Tour riders. But can you imagine? I mean, I said this to you guys yesterday. I didn't want Pogačar to win, but I quite liked the idea of seeing the yellow jersey cross the finish line alone. Hands aloft, just taking in his probably doing his bow. That would have been quite an apt. I mean, I wouldn't have loved writing about it again, but it would have been an apt, way to tie a bow on this Tour, and it wouldn't have been quite as. It would have been a hard-fought win, but yeah, I think Van Aert. I thought he was coming in. I mean, he said he wasn't feeling great on Saturday, but I thought when he did that little dig on the Cat 2 climb with the breakaway still 2.5 minutes up the road, I thought he's testing himself. Yep. There was no way he was actually getting up the road at that point. He was testing himself. He was really good, and he carried that form again into Sunday. So he peaked for the end of the Tour. And I mean, it is the perfect outcome.
I've put my conspiracy hat on now. Well done, Kit, for not getting distracted. If you can see, it's slightly tinged with crisp residue from spending time in one of our cars for 3 weeks, which is always a crispy disaster. I think that Pogačar lost, just by not being able to overcome Van Aert, because I believe there is actual real beef between those teams, which is only intensified in this Tour with all the little shithousery moments.
Yep.
And even though we had the quotes come out of Vingo and Pogačar saying, "Oh, the rivalry's weakened a bit," and we actually had a really nice chat at the start. I think you can do that while still beefing someone. You can
there was
still be
particular
cordial
beef between him and Jorgensen, wasn't there?
Exactly.
Supposedly.
So
it was Jorgensen he kept chasing down and wearing himself out.
And I think actually the move from Pogačar to kind of try and separate him caring about the Tour is to try and distance himself from not only like beef and combativeness, but also one of his interesting remarks, I think in the press conference, was like he had a nice time at the Tour because most people at the roadside were nice and didn't boo him. So I think after a while,
And
being
lots of them were
so
children.
popular and lots of
New
children
fans.
cheering, is that you get tired of of everyone having an opinion on you, right? So I think he is just trying to maybe lower the heat of everything and just be like, right, I don't actually want to get drawn into this huge sort of Pogačar versus Visma. Like, it's gone on too long, and they said before the start of the Tour that it felt very intense, and it's probably very distracting for having to live a quiet life of lots of exercise and little food and racial bike fast.
Yeah.
Did you see the world's
Hat's coming
most? Did you see the world's most awkward hug/dap between Giannetti and
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't.
and Pluga?
Yeah, it's so bad. It's so bad that I couldn't even bring myself to write about it in the newsletter, because it's just like, what are we supposed to say? But like is this a new thing, Caley, where I feel like increasingly I can't, maybe it's just I've lost a level of naivety, but I feel like every time a manager or a rider speaks, not every time, a lot of the time from those two teams, they're so
It's performative.
preoccupied with playing 4D chess that it's really hard to get a handle on what's actually going on, which then led into it being a bit of a weird tour, because it's like, I have very little insight here and it's hard to pass what is real or not, so I just don't really know. Is that just me? Am I being
not
gaslit,
at all.
or am I
I
gaslighting
also
myself?
found it quite amusing after all the all the kind of nitpicking. Not the right word. Anyway, but I think Visma posted last night or this morning a quite kind of cheesy, sappy little. I think did they put Tadej Jonas?
Oh,
all one
yes,
word.
and where they
And
shared
then
the
a sort
J.
of blurb, yes, with a little blurb about how they're not enemies, they're rivals, and then comparing them with Federer and Nadal and a bunch of others.
I want them to be enemies, to be clear.
Well, yeah, but also
significantly more fun if they're enemies.
Well, yeah, it is more dramatic, but also, I mean, if Pogačar, he really is miffed about or fed up with always being compared and put opposite Visma and Vingegaard, I'm like, well, put up with it.
Oh no,
Yeah.
Roy
That's
Keane,
your
it's your
job,
job.
mate.
I want those two to be enemies, and I want Pluga and Giannetti to be enemies, because they are
Yeah.
natural enemies anyway,
Yes.
right? Like you've got a former journalist and a former guy who ended up in a hospital for some unknown
yep.
reason, allegedly. Like they should be. They should be. Like if Richard Pluga is all about clean sport and like the future of cycling and changing cycling, whatever else, they should be enemies. And it's way more fun if they are, to be honest. So I think we should just take a quick break here, because we've been chatting tour wrap quite a bit. We do have a little more tour to get to. When we come back, let's talk specifically about the Pogačar burnout real quick.
There's been a lot of talk about what's next, what's after the Tour. Pogačar was kind of still sort of not really, maybe is still down for the Vuelta. Now, my inner conspiracy theorist was working on this during last week when he stopped going for stages, and he thought, actually, you know what, I just want to go on holiday with Ushka. I don't want to go to the Vuelta. Why am I going to the Vuelta? And so he started to look tired and pretend to be tired and pretend to be sad and pretend to be really miserable. And so that he could build up, he's laying the foundation for saying, guys, I want to be world champion again. I'm not going to the Vuelta. I'm sorry.
Nice.
So that's, but yeah. No,
I like
he
that as a
did
theory.
look tired.
That's
I like
a
that
good
as a theory.
theory. That's
It's
a really good
theory. That said, okay, so I think, Johnny, you and I talked about this. I'm not sure we ever talked about it on a podcast. I can't remember. But we definitely talked about it in the car. Definitely talked about it in a car. We should have saved it. We were talking in the car about how like chaotic the UAE bus is these days, and how it seems like more than previous years. The fact that we haven't been able to, we didn't chat with Larrick and Luke for more than like 5
Not
seconds.
once.
Not once. Because he's just like full gas protecting Pogačar from the people. Maybe he just doesn't like us. I don't know. Can we take
No,
our
he's
hats off?
still-
Like,
no.
we can take our hats off now.
Yeah, it's,
Okay. I'm keeping mine on because I've got a take for after this.
Okay.
But yeah.
No, it's because this is the real. This no conspiracy hat right now. This is like
Okay.
actual reporting from standing there in front of the guy. We definitely talked about this in that Pogačar, one, it was just more chaotic all around him, and that two, I think that was sort of either that or maybe some other things were affecting him from day one at this Tour de France. He seemed to be having less fun at this tour, literally from day one. And this is like all these sort of tiny interactions that you have. You know, they're the riders kind of how they act when they're on the little like press conference TV with us, for example, right? Like these are a moment. This is a moment that is not broadcast. It is for written press only. And so you often see the facade drop a little bit in those. Like we talked about Van der Poel being like just. We had never seen anyone not want to wear the yellow jersey as much as we saw Van der Poel in this press conference, where he's just like, I just don't want to be here. I don't want to do any of this. Like, I just don't want to deal with it. And I think we were seeing that from Pogačar as well, particularly in those moments when the TV cameras were gone and, you know, the quieter moments, you know, when he's just rolling around in the buses and when he was all these little tiny things. There was a definite sense that he was not enjoying himself as much as he has at previous tours. So I do think that there is something to it, whether he was ill, whether he's just tired of it, whether he was disappointed that Jonas was not better, whatever. I don't think we will truly know what it is until he, you know, writes a book with somebody in 10 years. But I think that there's something there.
I think the fixer would have been if Vingo was on a level to compete, and that, like we saw them on March stage, when everything's set up, that's just going to be good, and he's going to enjoy himself, and he can sense that he's like, okay, fine, I'm back in.
Yep.
Like, you know, this is an episode of my favorite sitcom that I haven't seen before.
Yep.
But I think unlike other sort of yellow jerseys and top cyclists, and I've got the hat on, so this is all guesswork. I think he's definitely more of a regular person than the others are. I think he lacks any sort of, I mean, this could all be wrong. We don't know for sure, but it's like he seems to lack that megalomaniacal. There we go. Oof. Check that Scrabble score. That streak where it's like you're hell bent on like destroying competition or making as much money as you possibly can. Like he realizes that he's got a few million and he's basically sorted it. And you can kind of see this from. I've met his parents a couple times now, and you like see them at every tour. They are still wearing like the same clothes as when they first like dropped him off at UAE Team Emirates to like become a professional cyclist or whatever. They're like, his dad just looks like a dad. They're all dressed in normal clothes. Like they have like a "We Support Pogačar" t-shirt, and they've done that whole thing. But they're not like blinged out, or he seems to be a normal guy, right? He's not. We saw him like going to that tennis in Monaco where you know he got booed because he didn't sit down, didn't do the right thing. And I think my real Tim Pot theory. Tinfoil theory is that he's like trying to like maybe do a bit of that, right? Trying to maybe enjoy the trappings of his celebrity, but I think it doesn't come naturally to him. It doesn't come naturally to him to sort of, you know, be this massive superstar. I think the memes and being funny was protected him for a while, but you grow out of that, right? And he's trying to figure out how he is Tadej Pogačar, but as a 26-year-old who's like kind of settled down, knows who he is earning more money than like, not more money than God, more money than a cycling god. So what does he do? What do you do? You know, everyone knows that money is not the answer to most things, and neither probably is winning. So where does he get his meaning from?
Yeah, he's already slightly diverted his focus by doing the Spring Classics.
Yeah, exactly. The Roubaix and he calls all the shots of that team, right? Like he chose to do Roubaix, no one can tell him. He just chose to race that Montmartre stage, and when he could have crashed.
Next year he'll actually call everyone's bluff and focus on the Spring Classics, then take July off, go to the Vuelta, get the Vuelta, come back the next year, get his 5th Tour de France and retire.
I mean that would be the true test of if he calls the shots in that team. You know, if he can be like, I'm not doing the tour this year. But it's it's a hard sport to fake, right? Like in basketball, I think you can probably like coast through a bit. Like loads of those NBA players don't enjoy basketball for the enjoyment of the sport for various reasons. Cycling is so much harder to do. You've got to be out there doing 30-40 hour weeks on your bike, doing the same thing. It hurts.
You don't eat
your
very much.
vices are limited outside of your sport. It's and he's already been doing it for like 6 years, and he's won it all basically. So I feel a sympathy with him. I think it's a definite question for the sport in terms of like, well, this really shouldn't be how these things go. Like, what have we created? Like everyone, that fans' expectation, the demands. It's all a bit weird. I don't know.
The only stage I saw him have fun on, Montmartre, obviously, because you can see in a bike racer's eyes, even behind sunglasses.
Yeah,
you can see when they're like, he's watching Wout, and he's kind of like, you can just see like the amount of time it takes between like the attack and the counterattack. I think is a good indicator of sort of like how just sort of clued in and tapped in he was, and how much, and therefore how much he was enjoying it. He definitely enjoyed that stage. I think he enjoyed. Again, all these stages run together. What was
describe it to me?
What was the one where we were? It was like stage 3 or 4, and we went and watched.
Stage 4 was his first stage win.
We watched the finale. We actually saw the bicycle race, Jonny.
Britain?
The buses were behind. No, it wasn't the mirror. Buses were behind us, and we were there. And anyway, I swear.
The one when he was sprinting against Mathieu van der Poel and Oscar Onley.
Oh yes.
That was
one,
stage 4.
Yes.
Yep, stage 4.
Nice one, Kit.
Definitely enjoyed that one.
In Rouen.
I think he enjoyed
yes.
Hautacam. I think he was like enjoyed dominating on Hautacam, and then I think that just sort of made the rest of the race less fun for him.
It's an interesting question, because if you compare it to Vingo as well, who kind of keeps himself locked away for the other 11 months of the year, and that's how he kind of deals with the tour. So it's almost nice to be surrounded by a bike race and have all that attention, and and you could see him having a good time. Like on
he seems to embrace it a little bit more than more than he used to.
Yeah. And on the bus where you had Victor Campenaerts and doing his vlogs with Matteo Jorgensen, it would pan around to Vingo, and he was like, "This is like, you guys are
really
hilarious.
Relaxed. Yeah.
Look, relax." And it's so weird that the vibes were so much better at Visma when they have always had the worst vibes.
Yeah, it was a
and
switch.
Even when they like were beaten handily, they were still like, you know what, like it's all good. It's all good. They actually did it the correct way, where instead of Pogačar and Roglic like openly questioning and trying to find the answer to what does it all mean, Visma were like, well, we're here to race our bikes, and they really raced their bikes, and everyone's like giving them criticism for doing it wrong, whatever. They're like, we don't, we tried, we came second, won stages.
It was still Pogačar was a problem. They try as they might, there wasn't anything they could do to beat Pogačar, I don't think.
Yeah. So I think they
tried.
Yeah. But it's almost easier to come second having tried your best, right? Because
easily, yeah.
If you win, the heavy is the head that wears the crown, sort of thing.
Indeed.
They were able to just go and party, basically. Nothing else.
You need Victor Campenaerts in your team, apparently.
Oh yeah, Victor Campenaerts is great fun. He's obviously really. I mean, he seems like. Did you see? I said this to Jonny, but Caley, have you seen Campenaerts Champs-Élysées snack? So the Titema boys were handing out pizza. In fact, they had T-shirts saying Titema Pizza or Torta Pizza or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they were handing out, Domino's, unfortunately, pizza at the finish line. And Campenaerts took pizza, opened the box, and then looked as if he was taking one slice, but then folded it into 3 or 4 more, and just went.
Yeah, it was disgusting.
like a cake of pizza. It was great.
Yeah. It's better.
I mean, I've got a summarising line which I was gonna take as my own, but I think I should give credit where it's due.
Go on.
And this is from actually, it's a good shout out. And congratulations to Abby and Stu for their baby, who is, in Abby's words, the same age as the 2025 Tour de France. Their first baby was born on the first stage. Abby was the big fan of Unchained, who I'd mentioned before.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Abby's husband Stu, he said Pogačar thinks that the Tour de France could have been an email.
that is harsh. That is very harsh.
But I think it's accurate.
Maybe true.
I think it's accurate. Yep.
I think this has been, we've almost done ourselves a mini group therapy session here, just trying to figure out where everything
Talk ourselves
sits
into
and stands
acceptance
and where it is. But I think it's an interesting discussion. I'd be interested to, after a couple of days, I'd be interested in knowing what people listening think of this tour. Especially if you have a cynical mind where maybe you've been watching for a while and you have lots to compare to. Did you find this tour weird? Is that just the vibe we picked up? I'd like to know.
Welcome back, everybody. We got some just brief news hits to get through here. Jonny, no Pogačar at the Vuelta.
Well, supposedly, according to AS, Spanish newspaper.
I mean, there's no way.
No, I don't think he's going.
Why
which
would he?
means, well, I mean,
He hasn't won it yet.
Ask Dane Cash. If Pogačar doesn't even won the Vuelta and then he's like, I can't even be bothered. I mean, that tells you all you need to know.
Well,
true.
but
Dane, where are you?
the fun outcome of that is
that we're gonna have a co-leadership at UAE Team
Yeah.
Emirates, where we'll have a hopefully recovered Joao Almeida, and Kit's got the hat ready, and we've got the return of the one, the only Juan Ayuso to
Do you remember
take on
a few months
Vingegaard.
ago when UAE? Remember a few months ago when Ayuso was out of the Giro, having gone in as a leader. And he was like, and there was a lot of talk in the media and the fans. Oh, we can go to the Vuelta and lead the Vuelta, or if Pogačar doesn't go, and the UAE, while also having Pogačar already on the start list for the Vuelta, said, oh, we don't send under 25-year-old riders to more than one Grand Tour a year, which was evidently just a way of saying we can't send Ayuso and Pogačar to the same damn race.
Because Pogačar is not up with his BS. Yes,
No.
we all have our conspiracy hats on now.
Yeah, we
by
do.
the way,
Just as a
conspiracy hat. Giannetti is concerned that the sport of
That was my
cycling
next point.
is in a low ebb and wants to provide us as much entertainment as humanly possible.
Yeah.
And so putting Ayuso and Almeida as co-leaders in the Vuelta will be funny.
Or
will be hilarious.
Ayuso isn't on the start list at all, except in the public eye, and they are trying to sort out some sort of transfer miracle. Because remember, during the tour, there was that discussion. Well, he's hired an agent, right?
He has.
yes.
So maybe-
I have,
Oh, right.
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, you
Well-
made a noise, so I was responding to your making of a noise.
Oh. Yeah, a way to break down and to describe a podcast someone has never heard one before. I have spoken. I was chatting to someone. Let's keep this vague. With knowledge of how rider contracts may or may not work.
Ooh.
Who could that possibly be? What
I
sort of
wonder.
person? Because the buyout clause has been bandied around as a huge obstacle to Juan Ayuso's transfer away from UAE Team Emirates. It's allegedly at 100 million euros, and that's supposed to be an obstacle. It's, as far as I've been told, it's not an obstacle. All it means is that it's such a ridiculous sum that it basically forces two parties to the negotiating table where discussions can take place. Because at no point can you hold out for that sort of money. So it's basically like a sort of legal apparatus to be able to sell a rider, basically. It's like this weird thing because we don't have a normal transfer market in the sport. It's like we have to use this weird system of how it works. So
not totally dissimilar to the Remco thing where,
No.
like it's just, Lefebvre kind of putting his foot down saying you have to pay me for this rider. It's just a means of getting them into a room
exactly.
with some lawyers where they can talk through it and get a number
And,
sorted
Yeah,
out.
and
so-
Remco's won't have been as high as it would be
No.
either.
No.
That's the
So
end.
Giannetti and co are trying to feign interest in Ayuso still,
Interesting. Well,
and Movistar are having to put up more money, assuming it's Movistar.
well, the price
obviously.
would go up if he got on the
yeah.
podium at the
Well,
Vuelta.
the price would go up if they think that he still is wanted at UAE.
Yes, exactly. So that's great.
So
news.
I am not sure that we'll see Ayuso at the Vuelta.
Hey,
Frankly,
you think? I think.
I want it.
I think.
I really want it to happen.
I do want a package
because
deal
it would be
though.
really funny if he's already signed a contract with Movistar, and he's at
just giving out beatings to Enric Mas.
Yeah.
I will be disappointed though, because I don't think, even if we get Juan Ayuso, we will not get Isaac Del Toro.
He is only 22.
And
but Ayuso's only 9 months older than him, actually, so I take it back.
But
no,
also,
I don't think
that
Del
was
Toro will go.
that was the perfect foil to the whole Ayuso thing, right?
Yeah.
So
Ayuso might just leave for good if Del Toro finds his way onto the start sheet there.
It's all very odd. Right. Oh, sorry. I kind of kept on that one for too long. Next one. Quinn Simmons proposed to his girlfriend.
You're
on
still wearing your
Champs-Élysées.
hat. Is this also?
Oh, sorry. This is no. I saw video. Well, I saw video of this, but you can't trust video anymore. I'm pretty sure this is true. I saw a video of Quinn Simmons proposing to his girlfriend on the Champs-Élysées in Paris after the final stage of the tour, and she seemed to say yes, because he then picked her up and gave her a big hug.
Cute.
Congratulations.
Yeah. The amateur rider who did the decathlon 82 Le Mondial. I've forgotten half the words in that sentence. The guy who ran onto the bike race, riding his own bike, flat pedals, decathlon 82 Le Mondial jersey,
Got
who
smashed.
then got beaten up by a policeman. Allegedly. No, we saw that happen.
We saw it.
He got a suspended prison sentence.
And €500 fine.
And €500 fine.
He spent 36 hours in police custody, which is quite a long time.
That is quite a long
running
time.
onto a bike.
Especially if you've got a broken collarbone. Presumably after he saw, well, it looked very much like he was in rough
He
nick.
looked like he was unconscious.
Yes. And he's been banned from participating in sports for 5 years, which I'm not sure how you police that.
Is he banned from visiting? Because he has form, as you put in the newsletter last week.
Yeah.
He has form with running on, invading pitches, and that sort of thing.
Literally,
got a selfie with Ronaldo.
Guy.
He's just a
dude.
prankster.
But seemingly not doing it for any sort of monetary
precisely.
benefit, which I can't tell if that makes him better or worse. But anyway, he got a suspended prison sentence, so presumably that means it's harder for him to leave the country and interrupt other things, I guess. And final little news hit. Lidl are now the majority owners of Lidl Trek. So it seems like they bought like a decent chunk of equity off Trek. They're now gonna, and Trek is still like a significant partner and the founder of the team, but then the press release this will help us in our aim to be like the best cycling team in the world, which is the aim of all bike teams.
I don't want to dig into this too much right now because I don't know that much about it and I haven't done any reporting around it whatsoever. But I'm intrigued by this because we know from previous experience that the value of these teams is basically nil, right? So they're now a majority owner of what exactly? Because they're there's like the license isn't guaranteed. They own the assets, they own the bus and the service course, and I guess in some way like the value of the contracts, perhaps. But my again, this is just my guess. I haven't talked to anybody about this. Is that this like Lidl now will have sort of a more ability to steer the team just in general, which meant that they're more willing to put more of their own money into it. And that's very much like the EF situation, which is that EF was like, okay, yeah, like we'll come basically save the team for you, Jonathan Vaughters, but like we want to own it and kind of have control, like legal control, boardroom control over this thing. My guess is that's why and how this went down was Trek was essentially looking for additional help and funding. We know the bike industry is not incredibly strong right now, so that's not too surprising. And Lidl basically said, sure, we'll put more money in, but we want to call the shots.
Give it to us.
Yeah. It's not, I guess my point being this, it's not like sort of like equity in something like a business, like a real business where they might benefit from it at some point. Like they're not going to go resell it. It's just a control thing. My guess. So interesting stuff. The main other thing to say before we kind of wrap up this show and head into After Dark is obviously we're into the 4th week of the Tour de France with the Tour de France Femme avec Zwift. So we've got our ground team writing those articles, which you can find on the website, and then we've obviously got daily podcasts which have continued. Yeah.
So if you found yourself sort of jonesing this morning, that's an American term. There you go. They've not got rid of all of them. For the Tour Daily podcast, they're still going on.
Yep. You just got to head over to the Wheel Talk feed, subscribe there,
Yep.
or if you're a member, you get the member everything feed. They are also running sort of an equivalent to After Dark called Off Mic.
Oh,
And so I think it's like extra diaries and a little bit extra analysis that they're putting different stuff behind the paywall every day. So if you want to get that, then you do have to be a member, get on that member feed, and then you will get the off mic segments of the Wheel Talk Tour Daily Pods. And they are doing a great job.
Very good job.
Do we have anything else before we get to After Dark ourselves?
no. Shall I trail what's going in After Dark?
Yeah.
Shall I let the people know? Well, the Daily Telegraph, the loveliest paper in all of the land that I live in, that's sarcasm. They've gone for Dave Brailsford's neck by sort of writing up what's been going on, but then headlining with like, is he out? Is he going to be out at Ineos? You know,
Yeah.
his future's uncertain. So we're going to dissect that a bit and what it means. Sunday saw the final ever free-to-air broadcast from the ITV cycling team, which has bummed me and Kit out, as well as many other people in a measurable amount. I don't think, and the other thing I got is more spicy thoughts on Pog's final Fields Tour, but thanks to our hats, I think we've covered every single thing. So yeah, and maybe just a chit chat on our reclimatization post tour.
Yes. All right, let's head into After Dark. Of course, After Dark is the extended version of this very podcast you're listening to right now. You have to be on the member feed to get it. So head over to escapecollective.com/join and sign on up. A lot of people signed up during the tour. Stick around because we do lots of good stuff all year. You get After Dark on this pod all year. You get all the paywalled website content. You get performance process. You get all sorts of good stuff. So make sure you stick around. And if you haven't signed up yet, /join. I've said it many times. Let's head After Dark.